Hello everyone, welcome to Cyberscoop TV. Greg Otto, your managing editor here. We're coming to you from the Andrew Mellon Auditorium for CyberTalks, and I'm talking with Jeanette Manfra, the Assistant Secretary of Cybersecurity for DHS. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So you made some news earlier this month. There was a binding operational directive tied to federal email security. I would love to hear more about it and the thought process behind it.
Sure. So the two main areas that we're focusing on is email security and web security. And what we were looking at is as mail providers in particular on the email side were increasing their adoption of DMARC. It was very important for enterprises such as the federal government to also adopt it. DMARC only works when you've got the sender and the receiver using it. So we decided in partnering with the private sector and organizations such as the Global Cyber Alliance that it would be a good step for the government to take that both for our own security, but also to ensure that citizens and residents of the United States can have added trust into emails coming from the United States government, as well as I believe it was an important signal for the rest of the country and ideally globally for others to adopt these important measures. On the web security side, we're focusing on HTTPS adoption, and that just means having more secure browsers. And again, that's to ensure that all public-facing internet government websites are more secure and can be more trusted by the public.
Great, great. So with what we've seen as far as the breaches in cybersecurity in the past year, a lot of the reaction has been reactive almost. How do we get organizations to move to a proactive approach when it comes to their cybersecurity posture?
I think we still believe very strongly in the cybersecurity framework that the Department of Commerce's NIST, or the National Institution of Standards and Technology, led the development of a few years ago with the private sector, and it's really taking a hard look and looking at it, whether you're a company from a business perspective or the government from your mission perspective, is what are those critical services and functions that you perform? What are those assets and systems that support that? And then focus your resources on protecting and ideally preventing anything from happening to that. And that's what we at DHS strive to do is as people build that understanding, how are we at DHS ensuring that they have the information and the capabilities they need to do that? And if you also though need to be prepared for response and recovery. And as a lot of people say, it's not if you get breached, it's when. And so again, focusing on those those sort of crown jewels, if you will, but also having plans in place to effectively respond and recover, and ideally be able to mitigate potential consequences from cascading and becoming larger. And so that's where we really think taking a proactive approach. It's not that you can prevent somebody from getting into your network. Ideally, we want to raise the cost, raise our defenses, make it harder for people, but we recognize that a lot of organizations are targets. And so being able to quickly identify people being in your network that are not supposed to be in your network, kicking them out, and then being able to recover your systems very quickly.
Great, and another element to this is the human element, and so I would love to get your thoughts on how we sort of combat the cybersecurity workforce shortage and get more people into cybersecurity, not just necessarily on the technical side, but across the entire landscape of support and communication and everything that goes into that.
It's such an important point, and I like that you covered not just the technical part, and because there is still the shortage in the technical capabilities, and it's not just people that are choosing it as a career, but it's also ensuring that they maintain their training throughout their career. And it's a quickly evolving field, and my folks, we have to invest a lot of resources to ensure that they get the training. So even if they come in with their computer science degree, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the end of their training. So that's sort of one piece on the technical side, continuing to grow people in STEM careers, getting them interested in cybersecurity at an early age is still very important, and we've done a lot of really great work, other government agencies, partnerships with a lot of other organizations and universities. We're really starting to develop kind of common curricula around what it means to be a cybersecurity analyst, for example, or a responder. Second, though, is I always sort of give a shout out to my lawyers, because there is such a sort of need for lawyers that can understand how these things work and what the impacts are, or policy people who have both enough of the technology but also the ability to translate that technology into policy decisions in the government. And the same is true in the private sector. And being able to have a workforce, and particularly people who may not be interested in an engineering degree, but they find the cybersecurity field interesting. So how do we get them into some other path, such as policy or management or others, so that everybody sort of has this kind of background in cybersecurity? And I think that is really crucial.
So finally, so much of what we deal with tends to have a negative tone. What is something that is positive inside the cybersecurity industry that you think doesn't get its just due?
What I think doesn't get its just due is the level of cooperation that happens.
Okay.
And one of the things that I talk about quite frequently actually is our response to WannaCry. And one of the things that people, I think, don't necessarily recognize is the capabilities that have grown both within the United States, our own government, but also internationally, and with the private sector, and the level of dedication, frankly, that the private sector has to support us. And so when you think about WannaCry, if you recall, it's happening in Asia, sort of starting. And we were getting our first awareness of what was going on, in addition to the news, but from our partnerships that we had developed overseas in sort of organizations that are built like ours, and they're sending us information, and we're just totally in receive mode, and that was able to better protect ourselves. The same thing as it went to Europe. So we're receiving more and more information as it evolves. And by that afternoon, I had every major internet service provider on the floor working with us, thinking about, or on the phone, thinking about what they're seeing, what we're seeing. And by that evening, and this is the one statistic that I think tells it all, is at 9 o'clock at night, with an hour's notice, I had 45 different companies represented on a call with me.
Wow.
And we're on calls and had people dedicated to us twice a day, and then 24/7 dedicated to passing malware samples back and forth, doing analysis, checking our work so that we could push alerts out. And they were identifying gaps that we weren't seeing. And so I think stories like that should inspire people. There's a lot more work we have to do, but just having that kind of foundational commitment and that unity of effort across industry and government and the United States and our allies around the world is, I think, very tremendous and exciting for the future.
Great. Thank you very, very much for speaking with us today and speaking at our event, and look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you.
For all of our videos, check out our YouTube channel, and for more on cybersecurity, check out cyberscoop.com. I'm Greg Otto. Thanks for watching.